May 13th, the day history refused to be normal. These are 4 moments in history, separated by centuries, that all landed on the exact same date, and every single one involves someone doing something either completely unreasonable, surprisingly honest, or flat-out legendary. May 13th covers 1607, 1888, 1940, and 1950, and none of them hold back. On May 13th, 1607, a group of 104 English settlers arrived on the coast of Virginia and made a decision that would shape the next 4 centuries of American history. They looked at a swamp, brackish water, mosquitoes everywhere, no fresh water in sight, and picked it. That spot. That's where they decided to build civilization. Jamestown. Named after King James I, which reads either as a tribute or a warning, depending entirely on what you think of King James. The location was technically an island, surrounded by water that wasn't drinkable, overrun with insects, and offering nothing that a reasonable person would call a foundation for anything permanent. Real estate agents would later describe this kind of property as charming and full of character. The first year killed more than 60 of those 104 settlers, taken down by disease, starvation, and what historians politely call poor decision-making, at a rate that would end any modern project in its first quarterly review. And that's when things get genuinely strange, because nobody left. No one looked at a 60% death toll and said, maybe we picked the wrong swamp. They dug in, outlasted it, and Jamestown became the first permanent English settlement in America. Permanent is working overtime in that sentence, and it knows it. But the stubbornness, that specific, irrational refusal to acknowledge a bad call, became something close to a founding personality trait for the nation that grew from this spot. Every "we don't quit" speech ever delivered on American soil traces a line straight back to 104 people who chose a mosquito island and never once reconsidered. Brazil, May 13, 1888. Emperor Dom Pedro II was on vacation, which meant his daughter, Princess Isabel, was running the country in his place. And on that particular day, she used that authority to sign a document called the Lei Áurea, the Golden Law, abolishing slavery in Brazil and making it the last country in the Western Hemisphere to end the practice. The name alone deserves a moment. Golden Law. That's a bold branding choice for a document correcting something that never should have existed in the first place. A bit like naming your recycling initiative Planet Hero. The action matters, but maybe don't issue yourself a trophy for finishing last among your peers. None of that softened what came next, though, because what followed the signing hit fast and hit hard. Landowners erupted almost immediately. The Brazilian economy lurched, and the empire itself collapsed the following year, with that single signature among the contributing causes. Princess Isabel lost her throne. She signed, knowing it would enrage the people with the most power, knowing the government might not survive it, knowing the institution her family built could fall because of it. And she signed it anyway. The empire collapsed. History remembered her as the hero, which is exactly the kind of outcome that makes a story worth telling 400 years later. May 13, 1940. Winston Churchill had been Prime Minister for exactly 3 days when he stood before Parliament and delivered his first major address to the nation. His words were these: "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. No vision statement accompanied that. No promise of a turnaround. No metaphor about rising from difficulty. No reassurance that the worst was almost behind them. Just a straight account of the situation, and a clear acknowledgement that it was going to be brutal. Hitler had invaded France 3 days earlier. The war was not going well. The world sat in genuine crisis, and Churchill, 72 hours into the biggest job of his life, decided the most useful thing he could do was tell people the truth. And here's the thing. It worked. Not because the truth was comforting, but because people can absorb hard news far better than they can absorb being managed. Being shielded from reality. Being told things are fine when everything around them says otherwise. Churchill skipped all of that, stated the situation plainly, and that speech became one of the most quoted in the English language. Now, we are absolutely not leaving 1940 without the bonus fact, because this bonus fact belongs in a museum of things that sound invented but aren't. The first recorded use of OMG, that OMG, the one typed millions of times every single day, appeared in a letter written directly to Winston Churchill. Back in 1917, a British admiral named John Fisher was writing to Churchill about military honors, specifically complaining about knighthoods. And in that letter, he wrote, OMG, oh my God, with a footnote explaining what it meant, in case Churchill wasn't caught up on current slang. A 74-year-old admiral in full military uniform, writing to a future prime minister to complain about knighthoods, coined OMG. The internet had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. May 13, 1950, produced two things that look completely unrelated on the surface, yet share a date in a way that feels almost deliberate. At Silverstone, England, the first ever Formula One World Championship race took place. Cars moving at dangerous speeds around a circuit, thousands of spectators in the stands, the beginning of one of the most watched sports on the planet. And in Saginaw, Michigan, that same day, a child named Steveland Hardaway Morris came into the world. The planet would come to know him as Stevie Wonder. One calendar square. The birth of the fastest sport on Earth, and the birth of a man who is famously, definitively, not someone you want operating a vehicle at dangerous speeds. The result was a combination so specific, it almost feels like a punchline the universe set up and never bothered to explain. What Stevie Wonder did with his life after that is worth the full accounting. 25 Grammy Awards came his way across his career. Blind from infancy, playing piano, harmonica, drums, and bass. Superstition came from him. Isn't She Lovely came from him. Happy Birthday, the version sung at more parties than any other song in living memory, came from him too. May 13th did not show up to coast. That is May 13th, stretched across 4 centuries. Settlers who chose a swamp, buried more than half their group in the first year, refused to leave, and built something that lasted. A princess who signed away her empire for the right reason and walked away with her integrity where her throne used to be. A prime minister who told his country the hard truth on day 3 of the hardest job in the world, backed up by an admiral who accidentally invented OMG while complaining about knighthoods. And a single day in 1950 that produced Formula One and Stevie Wonder at the same time on the same planet for reasons the universe has never fully accounted for. History gets called dry sometimes, and that reputation is completely undeserved. The past was just as chaotic, stubborn, funny, and surprising as anything happening right now. The difference is that May 13th happened to stack all of it in one place. And now you know about it. Subscribe if you want more of this. A new one drops every week. Same weird planet, different day.